and he had altered the future, earning bonus points +1. His confusion lingered, and he pondered how he'd shifted the future. Setting the axe aside, he grasped the electric drill. Once again, the system displayed that he'd changed the future, awarding him bonus points +1. But suddenly, an orc emerged behind him, and with great strength he hurled the axe, striking the orc's knees forcefully, sending it crashing to the ground. Without hesitation he sprinted toward it, seized the axe, raised it high, and decapitated the orc. Curious about the past, he inquired of Bowen whether he'd used an axe in the same situation previously. Bowen recollected and mentioned using a chainsaw. A grin spread across his face as realization dawned. Doing something different from what had occurred in the past was akin to altering the future. While not entirely certain, it made sense to him. He believed that he should now do the opposite of what he'd done in his previous life. Moments later, Bowen recounted how he'd single-handedly slain 3 orcs in the past. He pointed toward something nearby, indicating that he'd employed it. Following Bowen's gesture, he spotted a container of thinner. He knew that thinner could revive hardened paint and was highly flammable. He remarked that it was intriguing and approached the thinner, contemplating how it might have been used to burn the orcs to death. He picked up another tool, understanding that using it meant he'd be doing something different from the past. Alternatively, he could use the thinner to eliminate all the orcs, or choose not to kill any at all. The system signalled that he'd altered the future once more, granting him bonus points +1. Though fatigued from his efforts, the other players agreed to his plan. He inflicted injuries upon the orcs by targeting their Achilles tendons and knee joints, before dousing the fallen orcs with thinner and igniting them. As the orcs burned, the system revealed another change in the future, awarding him bonus points +1 and levelling him up, which brought an additional bonus of 3 points. He now comprehended that by doing the opposite of his past actions, he earned bonus points. Though he remained unsure of their purpose, it seemed natural. He also believed that even without these bonus points, beheading the orcs would still be an effortless task. The system showed him that he achieved the brave rookie and explained that the achievement is awarded to players who complete a hunt without using any bonus points. Also, a skill will be awarded for earning that achievement, so he gained armor level 1, making him confused. But then a bright light wrapped around him and gave him black gloves. He looked at it and asked what it was. The man cursed because he thought it would be his that time, and the lady angrily asked, when did he even get that skill? He asked them what with those faces and if there was a problem that he got that skill. The lady replied that there was, of course, a problem because he devoured all of Korea with that overpowered skill, and the man told him that he can't believe he just missed the chance of getting that insane skill, making him realize that he must have gotten that skill in his past as well. He also thinks that it should be the case as the butterfly effect skill was not activated, and the future only changes if he does something new. But the skill wasn't activated when he got the brave rookie achievement and the armor skill. Then the portal released a powerful power and rumbled loudly. He stepped forward to it while the players were looking at him, and Bao-on seriously glaring at him. Before we continue, let's take a moment to shout out at Java Campbell 6343, who commented Rias on our auto hunting video. Thanks for commenting and answering the question of the day. He stopped walking when the system popped up in front of him and told him that it was a dungeon of goblins and orcs with 11 goblins and 8 orcs. Also, the max number of players is 4, and it was dungeon difficulty D negative. He thinks that the game was definitely first created with the annihilation of the human race in mind, and there is a fixed number of monsters in each dungeon. After a certain period of time, the monsters in the dungeon would come out of the dungeon gate and destroy everything. He also notices that those monster-filled dungeons are connected to Earth via gates, so there is only one way to destroy a gate. Then he told them that they have to kill all the monsters as quickly as possible, because the number of monsters in the dungeon and the maximum number of players that can enter it is stated on the dungeon information. But he knows that the dungeon's difficulty is important, as it determines the rarity of skills and items that can be dropped. Then he told them that its difficulty is D negative, which means it was a dungeon above rare grade, and he thinks even so he still has a reason for wanting to enter that dungeon because he wants to do an experiment. He wants to test out the stats he has gained as a player and the newly acquired skill armor. He knows that he was at a disadvantage with regard to information about the world, so he needs power that he can immediately see. After all, strength is actual power. Also, the armor means it strengthens and hardens the player's body, and the toughness of the armor is in proportion to the player's strength with bonus points of 15. This made him realize that those bonus points are the points he got from the butterfly effect. Then he told the system to apply all his bonus points to strength. He proceeded to walk toward the dungeon while thinking that he has already defeated countless goblins and knows the weakness of the orcs, so he needs to be prepared for unknown dangers. That's why he chose that place as his first hunting ground. Meanwhile, Bo, who was following behind him, thought that perhaps Huayun got something from there in his previous life. They entered the dungeon and started to walk while looking around without noticing a goblin smiling and hiding from their side. They were shocked when goblins appeared behind them. One of them bit his arm but was shocked that it couldn't bite him. The system showed him that his armor was activated, while the goblin looked at him in shock. Then he reached for the goblin and grabbed its head. Then he squeezed it to death. The system showed that he has changed the future, so he gained bonus points +1 and showed him that he was level 2 with 16 strengths, and his skills are butterfly effect level 1 and armor level 1. He noticed that his strength is at 16 when it hasn't been 5 hours since the game began. He threw the goblin on the ground, making the lady fearfully say that it was ridiculous, and the man can't believe that he crushed the goblin's skull with just one hand. Bo asked him just how he did it, and told him that the skill armor is the only one of its kind in the world. It was probably because of that skill that he was considered the strongest player in Korea in his previous life. But he just asked Bo, "So what?" Boan replied that he'll be taking it. Then Bowen snatched the chainsaw from the man and launched it toward him, making him surprised. Bowen attacked him with the chainsaw, but the chainsaw didn't pierce through, making him laugh and think that even if he didn't regress, it wasn't right. Absolutely not. He lifted his hand, knowing that it was his turn. He simply grabbed the working chainsaw and snapped it into two. Then he threw it to the side and grabbed Bo by the neck. He lifted Bo, who was level 3, with one hand and Bo with surprise, but he just told him that it was a shame while thinking that at the end of greed lies destruction. He learned it himself on the battlefield and has a wound to remind him about it. Also, he knows that as those players have regressed to the hardware store at the same time he awakened, they must have thought that they would be able to get the skills he had in his previous life. Then he asked others if they want to try too and told them to get lost. He tightened his grip on Bo's neck and snapped Bo's neck. He looked at the dead Bo on the ground and remembered that on the battlefield, what he received in return for releasing his enemies was not gratitude but more bullets, and that is how it always was. Then he told them that the law is meaningless now that the game has started, and told them to get lost if they don't want to die. He knew he couldn't let his feelings mess things up when dealing with someone who had threatened him before. It felt like a really mean game though. When a player died, their stuff just popped up for anyone to take, but he said it was handy. So he snatched a necklace from the Goblin Champion. It boosted his strength and agility. Pretty cool. He even got bonus points for it. He thought about how much it helped him level up. It was like 2 levels at once. Some guy asked him why he wore such a weird necklace, but he just grabbed a chainsaw off the ground. An orc was coming at him, so he shoved the chainsaw into the orc's mouth and sliced its face in half. He couldn't really feel the necklace's power though. Then, the game said they'd killed all the monsters in the dungeon. They had to run because the place would blow in 3 minutes. He headed for the exit, leaving goblins and orcs lying around. He knew the only way to close the gate was to kill everything inside. When the monsters were gone, the gate vanished too. It was like the law didn't matter anymore. Even those players who got sent back didn't know what happened to the ones left inside. Nobody ever came back once the gate was gone. Bodies just disappeared with it. He gazes at Bowen's lifeless body, wondering if it's why the dungeons let players escape before they crumble. Then, his attention shifts to the upset kid who was throwing a fit near his father's lifeless form. He gently approaches the child and asks why he's here, if he wants to stay in this dangerous place. The kid sniffs, tears streaming, and replies with a shaky voice, "No, I want to be with you." He sighs softly, explaining they should head through the nearby gate to safety. But the child pleads, his cries echoing in the chamber, begging to come along. Frustration creeps into his voice as he insists, "Stop it!" He opens his status window and allocates his bonus points to strength. Now, his strength stands at 28, even surpassing a level 9 player who focuses solely on strength. He sternly tells the sobbing child to cut it out. The kid, tears still flowing, reveals they've travelled back in time a whole decade. He urges the child to be brave, to which the kid retorts, "Even in 10 years my life will still be the same. I want to be a hero, just once." He studies the kid, now knowing him as Kim Minsu, intrigued by the boy's unusual story. Minsu confides that he wishes to be a hero's right-hand man, a sincere desire. He leans in, a grin tugging at the corners of his mouth, and tells Minsu, "You're quite the interesting one." It dawns on him. Minsu holds the secrets of the next 10 years. What will happen next? Find out next time by staying tuned for our future recaps. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more great recaps.